All right, good afternoon and welcome. Most of you know me, but my name is Aaron Bundy. I'm Director of Security and Transportation Services. And of course, I'm here with Stephen Anderson, Director of Property Management. I didn't do it. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. So at Lanier Village Estates, resident safety is one of our top priorities. All resident buildings are equipped with automated fire monitoring suppression systems to ensure early detection and rapid response. Each building includes automatic fire water sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems with smoke detectors connected to 11 annunciator panels that can be monitored throughout the property by staff to be alerted to any issues. We have manual pull stations near the building exits and the stairwell entrances. We also have individual smoke detectors with alarms inside each apartment. Today we're going to be discussing the evacuation plan and what actions to take when a general alarm is activated. And I want to key in on that term general alarm just to explain. That's the term we use for when the entire building is in alarm. Okay, that is different than just the smoke detector in your individual apartment or residence is going off. So a cooking issue or incident in your apartment is not going to necessarily set the building off. When we're talking general alarm, we're talking about the whole building. So first I want to go over the staff's response, mainly security, what our response is as soon as an event like this occurs. And then after I walk through that whole process of what the staff is doing, we're then going to go through your part of that process. Okay, so what you should do when this or that happens. So in a general alarm, security's response or the staff response, we have two officers, a stationary officer at the welcome house or the gate, the front gate, and then we have a patrol officer, the person who is here in the building. So the stationary officer is immediately going to call the patrol officer to investigate. Hey, John, there's an echo. It feels a little loud. Okay, so that stationary officer, that's better. That stationary officer is going to call the patrol officer and send them to investigate. They're going to wait for confirmation of a fire from that patrol officer. And this is particularly trying to determine between a false alarm, such as a faulty sensor, or somebody's sanding drywall or something to that effect, or we have a real event. There's a note here that says, smoke is not a false alarm. So if there is smoke, we don't need to wait for a fire. That is a real event. All right, and if there's a confirmation that there's fire or smoke, the stationary officer is going to call 911 and remain at their post to provide command and control. They're going to remain at the gate to direct the fire department if there's any question about where they need to go. They're maintain communications with the patrol officer and with other staff on ground, whether that's maintenance or housekeeping or basically anyone with a radio. They're also going to execute what we call the emergency contact list. That's all staff members, usually at the director level, that depending on whatever the issue might be, it could be a power outage, it could be a freezer lost temperature. In this case that we're talking today, it would be a fire. But there's a contacts matrix of staff that need to be identified immediately and called when something like this occurs. So the stationary officer, after they dispatch patrol, after they call 911, they're going to start calling those staff members. All right, now we get to the patrol officer and their steps when an event like this occurs. At the alarm area, to determine whether fire or smoke has been seen. So that's both visually and if there's any residents in the area, seeing if they saw anything or smelt anything. If there is smoke, they're going to relay that to the stationary officer right away and then immediately begin evacuation of the immediate area. That's not the whole floor or the whole building, but just the immediate area around the fire or the incident. They're going to begin evacuation of that area. They're going to unlock any doors in that area and then direct the fire department personnel once they arrive and say, hey, it's down this hall or it's in this closet, what have you. Now they'll further assist the fire department if they're requested to, but more likely they're going to then switch to helping facilitate a full building evacuation. Once the fire department is here, their job is the fire, our job then switches to full evacuation. All right, that kind of takes us through the staff procedures. I would also note that once 911 has been called, the stationary officer is going to send out over the radio something like an all hands on deck. And so that would be calling if it's late at night. There's not a lot of people here, but there may be some housekeeping staff. There's certainly going to be some Willowbrook and OBT personnel. Anybody that is not actively helping a patient is going to then move to this area to facilitate evacuation. And we saw that bear fruit in practice about a year ago. So even if it's at night where there's just 2 security guards, we're still going to have 3 or 4 people at least that are going to be able to help before more people arrive.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, maintenance on call is going to be headed this way. Likely I will be headed this way. Chris Hopkins will be headed this way. So there will be multiple people headed this way in that event. So the biggest thing that we can do and as part of this evacuation plan is to be prepared. You need to know where the pull stations are at. The fire extinguishers, everybody has probably seen those as you walk down the hall, but I brought this up yesterday, people look surprised, but we are not going to ask you to grab a fire extinguisher and put the fire out. Please do not think that you need to try to put this fire out. That's more for our staff. If we get to into a situation where we see that there's a fire that is, something small that we can manage, we will likely grab that fire extinguisher. Your job is not to put out the fire. We would ask that you, of course, take care of yourself. Go ahead and get to your evacuation route and proceed to your staging area. We're going to take care of the fire if possible while we wait on 911 and emergency personnel to get here. The biggest, I guess the most important thing for you in that preparation is to know your evacuation route. The maps are located all through the hallways, all down. They're closer to your apartment, you get the more accurate that route would be. If you have any questions about that route, if you're not sure which one you should take, get in touch with me or Aaron. One of us will be more than happy to come and get with you so that we can show you which route you need to take. And I did put some paperwork on the back countertop. I think most of you picked something up that will help you know which stairwell you should go to that's closest to you. If there were not enough back there, let me know. I'll be more than happy to make sure that you get a copy of that, just in case. I think I printed out 30 of them, but it looks like there might be more than 30 of you here today. Ma'am? They're located on the hallway, in the hallway towards your apartments. So,
They're also right outside every elevator.
On the elevators
so as soon as you step off the elevator, turn around, and there'll be one of these maps.
And more specific maps. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it tells you where all the stairwells are located and gives you a map of the building. The basic guideline is just make your way to the nearest stairwell, which we'll cover later, but that's the idea. Make your way to the nearest stairwell and then proceed down and out.
Again, if you have any questions, please get with me or Aaron. We'll be more than happy to come spend some time with you and show you the route that you need to take and the stairwell that you should go to, or if you need that paperwork. Either way, we'll be more than happy to come get with you. Another part of that preparation is a go bag. If you have any military background or any other experience like that, you're probably familiar with the term go bag. If not, it's just a bag that's got a few necessities with you that typically you keep handy in case of an emergency, that's something quick you can grab on the go. Extra set of keys for the apartment, maybe for your car, maybe an access card in our case, because a lot of times you can't get back in the building after hours without your access card. Maybe if it's winter time, you might want a jacket or a poncho or something in there in case it starts to rain, something like that, maybe a little flashlight. I would recommend, in most of our cases, we have medications. You might want to keep a day or two supply of a medicine just in case you're not going to be able to return to your apartment for a day or two and have to go to the pharmacy to get your refill done before you get to go back. Everybody has, their own specific needs to think about, but something quick that you can grab on the way out the door, keep it close, maybe in a laundry room or something. For those of you that have pets, I would recommend that maybe you keep your pet leash next to it so that you can grab your animal and your go bag at the same time on the way out the door. Make it easy. Well, I know we all love our pets. We don't want to leave our pet behind. As you are leaving the door, and I know this, it was brought to my attention. I did pull this image offline, but we don't typically use the front of our hand to check the temperature of a door. But as you're leaving, check the temperature of the door, but using the back of your hand to make sure that it's not hot. You don't want to walk out into the middle of the fire in case the fire is right outside your door. In most cases, it probably won't be, but just in case, use the back of your hand, make sure it's warm, or if you see smoke or anything right outside in your hallway, go back inside the apartment, maybe go to the patio door and start trying to let people know around you or underneath you that you can't get out because you have smoke, or call security. Let us know that way so we know that you're in your apartment and you can't get out because there's smoke there. And we talked about it a lot yesterday also, but if you do go out and your evacuation route, there's smoke in the way of your evacuation route, don't feel like you're locked into that specific route. That's more of a guideline. There's alternate routes for everyone here. Take a different path, find a different stairwell and go that way. I know a lot of this stuff seems like common sense. You have probably been hearing a lot of this stuff since we were in kindergarten.
I do have one thing to add on that.
Sure.
It was brought up yesterday, a question about the fire doors that close automatically.
Oh, yeah.
Those are released when the building goes into alarm. It's just a fire barrier. You can still pass through those doors. That's perfectly fine. But like Stephen said, your evacuation route should be to your closest stairwell, because we're going to cover it because elevators don't or shouldn't work. But your evacuation route to your closest stairwell and then down. But again, that's a guideline. If the fire is that direction, you need to don't go towards it. So that's why this is like guideline and best practices. This is not a hard and fast rule. Don't get caught into, I'm supposed to do A, then B, then C. No. Use your best judgment. Obviously evacuate away from the fire. And like what Stephen was saying, if your door is hot or there's smoke in your hallway, seek shelter on your balcony and let somebody know that you're up there.
All right. Do you want to talk about the wellness impaired list?
Yes. So the wellness mobility impaired list. Now, wellness already has a list of the mobility scooters. I thought it was funny they even give you a little registration number.
Yeah.
I told them I was like, I'm going to use that for writing tickets. No, but
speeding tickets in the hallway.
For the mobility impairment we're talking about, the criteria for that is: are you able to navigate downstairs on your own? If not, then yes, you need to identify yourself. We've got some sign-up sheets in the back. You just write your name down and your information. That will identify you to us. But that's the criteria. Do you think you could make your way downstairs? You don't need to climb up. You don't need to do any of that. Just downstairs. And if not, identify yourself. The practice for somebody with mobility impairment is, again, make your way to the closest stairwell and then remain at the top of those stairs, okay? Try not to block the stairs for other people coming through. So if you've got a scooter, don't pull it into the stairwell or block the doorway. Leave the scooter. You can stay in the hallway right next to the door to the stairs, or in the stair landing itself. Both is fine. Just try not to impede traffic. And we will be coming around, us and firemen will be coming around to facilitate your evacuation. We've got devices that will help us lower you down the stairs, so that won't be a problem. But we don't want to have to search the building for you, so just go to your stairwell. Plus, the stairs are higher fire rating, so you'll be safer there anyway.
Yeah, the stairwells have a much higher fire rating, so they can withstand the heat a lot longer. There have been a couple of stairwells that were identified that don't have the evac chairs. I will be purchasing additional evac chairs, not only for those that were missing the chairs, but I feel like it might be necessary for a few of the stairwells where we have a higher volume of residents who require assistance, and then of course just have a higher volume of residents in general, where we would need to have 2 chairs in each stairwell, one maybe for the 3rd floor and one for the 6th floor, so we can be operating more than 1 chair at a time in certain cases. So that's going to be coming by the end of the year also.
I will say also, just to clarify what the fire department and the staff's priority of list is in an evacuation event like this, the first station that gets here is going to be worried about the fire. They're not going to do anything with evacuation. Their priority is to get control of the fire. And hopefully they can do that and then the problem is solved. But if not, the second station that arrives, they will start helping with evacuation. Plus, once the first station gets here, staff will switch from identifying and directing to only evacuation. So as soon as the first station gets here, they'll take over fire duties, all the staff will move to evacuation duties, and the second station that gets here will also facilitate evacuation. So when the firemen get here and they're not coming immediately to get you down the stairs, know that that's the priority there. Their first thought is the fire.
Yeah, we're luckily in a unique position where 16 gets here in about 4 minutes typically. The second station is here in about 7 minutes, so typically it's a very quick process as long as everything goes smoothly. And we have worked out some of those hiccups. We identified quite a few of those hiccups in our last event in April. I had 2 meetings with the fire marshals and 3 of the different fire chiefs from the local stations. We had really good dialogue and were able to work out a lot of those kinks and identified a couple of problems on our end that we worked out. So here's kind of what one of the evacuation route maps will look like. This one was actually pulled from WBC, so it's not going to be as familiar as what some of yours will look like. It was just close to my office. Just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what to look for. They're posted next to the elevators and up and down the hallways. About every 75 feet you'll see a different one. They're typically underneath the emergency lighting that you'll see. And this is kind of the staging locations.
Yeah, so this is, and we're going to show one for West as well. These are the staging locations once you've exited the building, kind of the gathering points, depending upon where you come out of the building. If we go, so this group is West, yeah.
I just moved it to West.
Well, we think we have both folks here.
Before you start on that, the handicapped people that gather at the top of the stairs, many of them don't have the ability to stand for very long. Is there if they have to sit down there, I have to sit down on the floor, obviously, if they're going to do that. So is there any thinking about what should happen there?
So at that point, and I don't mean to seem harsh, but we're going to take it as a win that you didn't burn up in the building. And so we'll make you as comfortable as possible on the grass or the curb, and we'll then start trying to.
Or in the building at the stairwell.
Yeah.
If you're standing at the stairwell.
If the clubhouse is fine, we can come down here, things like that. But there's not we can't stage chairs, outside in an event that may happen once every 3 years. But, yeah. So for these staging areas, I will say in years past, we have had resident volunteers managing these areas, and I think we've kind of let that go. And so one thing that we're asking of you guys, if you could get with your floor leaders, and it doesn't have to be a floor leader, but if we could get some volunteers to do that again. We'd like a primary and an alternate just in case of vacation travel or what have you, for volunteering to kind of take names and take attendance at these staging areas from the residents. So we're looking to stand that up again and maintain that. But if you can see the 3 locations, the exit on the first floor coming out opposite the atrium, people using that exit would be the grassy area past the garden. Then of course the main portico would be gathered in the parking lot, and then the first floor towards the end going out to Misty Morning is just that sidewalk out there. And then again, check in with your volunteer coordinator, but like you said, it may be some time, it may be a little uncomfortable, it may be raining. Feel free to seek shelter in your car, in the clubhouse, what have you. You don't have to just stand right in that area. We're not suggesting that. And we're going to take all your questions at the end, but we're almost done.
Elevators will not work in the general alarm, or they're not supposed to. We did have an event in East, I think it was East, about 3 months ago. We had a malfunction in one of the elevators. The general alarm went off, and the elevator still worked. So I had that fixed recently, so that shouldn't be a problem moving forward. But when the alarm is going off, the elevators won't work. So the signs, the signs say don't use them, don't use them. That's just not a safe place to be. This is just kind of reiterating what I spoke of earlier about your pets. We all love our animals. Let's try to make sure that we use good judgment when we're evacuating with our animals. If you have a leash that extends, let's try to make sure it's not a trip hazard for anyone else or yourselves when we're trying to leave. We're all leaving in a hurry. We're all trying to we have common goals of getting out safely. And another thing to keep in mind is LVE and fire personnel are not going to go back and retrieve your animal if it is a smoke or fire-filled building. So you are responsible for your own pets, so just keep that in mind. I think most of us would be going to get our pets probably before we went and got our spouse. But when we're visiting with friends, the verbiage, the official verbiage in the evacuation plan is that we are to follow our friends along their evacuation route and take their lead. That you should not go back to your own apartment and retrieve your things. You should just evacuate with your friends and handle it that way. As adults, I think that most of you will probably, if you're 2 doors down and you don't see smoke or fire when you walk out the door, you're probably going to go back to your apartment and get your keys and get your go bag and do your own thing. And most of us understand that. Use your best judgment, do what you have to do, but the official verbiage is to follow your friends on their own evacuation route. If you're going to have to go from east to west, then that's a whole different ball game. If you're going to have to go up and down multiple floors to get back to your apartment, that's a whole different risk factor involved also to consider. But again, officially follow your friend whose apartment you are staying in and go the evacuation route that they go. Aaron, I'll leave this one up to you.
So in the event of a fire alarm like this, we're going to wait for the all clear. Now, the building will be alarming the entire time, and we're not going to attempt to shut that down until we have the fire identified and under control and hopefully extinguished. So in the event of an all clear, we're going to start, it'll go out over the radio for staff. We're going to start making our way to those staging areas. But then something we would ask of you guys, help spread that word once you hear an all clear from staff, because to your point, it's not very comfortable in those staging areas. If you've moved on to your car or to the clubhouse or to another area, help pass that word along as we're navigating around the building, because depending on which building it is and the areas that we have to go to, it could be 20 minutes before we get around the whole thing. So we're going to be attempting to pass that word. But help us pass that word. And then Stephen mentioned yesterday, after that is all said and done and we've kind of passed that word and we get back to the office, we're going to then put out a reverse 911, but that would be sometime after the actual all clear has been given. So you'll eventually get that message as well, but hopefully you'll have heard it from us before then.
Yeah, that could take 30, 40 minutes, and that's a lot of standing around before you would actually get that all clear. But you'll eventually get the reverse 911. So if you are all of you on the reverse 911 list? Do you all get those messages that I send out? Do you all get the messages that I sent out about the inclement weather, about stowing away your furniture and all that good stuff? That's the reverse 911. If you're on that list, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. This is the big one. So everybody's experienced this one. That 8:30 in the morning alarm that goes off from the bacon or the toast. So it happens probably, I think, 3 times a week, maybe 3 times a week.
I've tried telling my wife that the food's done before this particular buzzer goes off.
Basically just a few things to think about. So when it does happen, and it'll happen, it happens to the best of us, don't open the door to your hallway, please. That's going to set off the general alarm, which we don't all want to wake up to your bacon. We don't. Just open up the sliding glass door or some windows and start the ventilation process. When that alarm goes off, again, that annunciator panel is going to hit the guard shack or the front desk, and somebody's going to call you immediately, and hopefully you can hear the phone ring over your alarm. And one of the guards is also going to start, or one of the maintenance crew is going to start walking your way. We're going to call first to try to make sure that you don't have an open fire, like an actual fire event going on in your apartment. But once whoever the rover is that's headed your way, we're not going to knock. We're just going to come in with a key, and we're going to walk right in. We're going to help ventilate the apartment until we can get that alarm, cleared out for you, and help get the smoke cleared out until that alarm is able to be shut off. But the key component to that is we are trying to reduce false alarms for the rest of the building so that everyone participates in the evacuation plan during an actual event. That is the most important process. So I spend a lot of time once a month with my contractors trying to train them and retrain them. Aaron brought it up briefly earlier. Sanding drywall is a big one for us. When we're renovating apartments, we have to cover our smoke detectors. There's a lot of different things that we have to do during the renovation process to try to prevent that from happening. But just like everywhere else in the world, they hire new guys all the time, and that process doesn't always get run down the line to the new guy. So we have to fight that battle also. But if we can control opening doors, the wrong doors at the wrong time, prevent that alarm, that general alarm, from hitting everybody so that we don't all get affected by that, that would be a big help because the fire department brought it up in our first meeting. The battle that we fight is a lack of participation from the residents, from you guys. Even when we had that event a year ago, there was smoke-filled hallways on the 5th and 6th floors and residents just openly refusing to leave the building still, which is kind of surprising, but that's a problem. So if we can get participation, that's half the battle.
Somebody did bring up a question yesterday about how do they tell the difference between a general alarm, that's the whole building, and a specific alarm in their apartment. If it's alarming in your apartment, how can you tell? And the easiest thing is if you're not fighting a cloud of smoke in your apartment and you hear the alarm going off, then it's a general alarm. So, but that is the slideshow, so we'd like to open the floor for questions. We're going to do our best to repeat the questions so everybody can hear, but if we're not perfect, if we forget, just tell us, what did they say? What did they ask? So, yes, ma'am.
You talked about how we get to different places and that kind of thing, and it works good at night and when you're in your home. But what about where people are other places, like in a different building for something to do, somewhere over here? When we did it before, we were looking and saying we had a list of who we would expect to come out of there, which then we could say, okay, we know this person's here, this person's here, this person's here. But you haven't talked about them going to other parts of the thing and how to handle that.
So she's asking about evacuating when you're not evacuating from your specific apartment. Do you mean knowing your specific evacuation route or then being accounted for after the fact?
Accounted for.
Okay, so that process, because of the roster that we're going to be going off of, is a self-reporting roster. So if you leave town and don't let us know, we're going to be looking for you, not knowing that you're not here. So some of that information is self-reported. It's going to get us to a 90-95% solution. It's not going to be perfect.
Well,
Perfect is going to be very difficult to achieve. And depending on what time of day, if it happens during a meal time, almost nobody is going to be evacuating their planned, scheduled route because they're going to be in the bistro or upstairs dining. So we're just going to have to be flexible in an event like that, because maybe West Building alarms and evacuates, but we've got 20% of residents because it happened during a meal, and 80% are off having their meal. They're not even in the building. So we're going to have to be flexible. To that end, we're checking every apartment. We're going to be going through and looking. Once we start the evacuation process, we're going to be looking to make sure we get everybody.
And you'll be able to pick up who's not in their area, who's in their area. They're someplace across the sting, rather than them just be somewhere and we don't know who's where.
Well, exactly to your point, it may be impossible for us to determine where each individual person is. So
Where are they for?
to mitigate that, we're going to attempt, one, to put out the fire so we don't have to worry, and two, we're going to evacuate the whole building. We're going to search the building top to bottom. Instead of searching for one person that's missing, we're searching the entire building. Resident storage, mechanical rooms, obviously your apartments. We're searching everything to make sure we evacuate. So because we're probably not going to know 100% of where everybody is, that's the steps we're going to take to mitigate that.
Yeah, we may not know where you are, but we know where you won't be.
We want to see a paper that has, that you can check, that person's been seen.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a whole other category. I have been here in the auditorium when the clubhouse went out. The alarm here went out at night with bingo and things like that, with no staff members visibly around. And it was a real problem. I mean, yes, we have this door, and that wasn't a problem. We evacuated. But we had no way of knowing what happened, whether there was an all clear. And it was a long time before the security person actually got here even to help the fire people.
We'll certainly try to do our best, but sometimes in the event of what is eventually determined a false alarm, it's difficult to prove a negative. Okay, so we're checking all the spaces. Obviously, you know, the building alarms, you don't see a fire in this room. It could be in the attic. It could be in some of those crawl spaces. So there's a lot of areas for us to check before we can say definitively, okay, this was a false alarm. That may have been part of the problem, but we're certainly we're working on training our staff. We identify opportunities from last year that we're saying, okay, yep, that's a gap. Let's fix that with training. So we are stepping up our game in that area.
But I'm pointing out the fact that it's a resident-run event. It's not, and it's at night. And there are many of those kinds of activities around here that we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, that might be a point of focus that we need to
are out
address.
of the apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Well, and certainly in the independent living environment, you guys have to meet us halfway. You know, you have to meet us halfway with evacuating, with making sure you're staying safe and using safe practices. So you certainly have to meet us halfway with that to maintain our safety. Yes, sir.
If we're called to leave our apartment and go to our evacuation area, should we leave our apartment doors unlocked?
Yes, great question.
Yes.
Yes, please do leave it unlocked. That would make it much easier and faster for either us or fire personnel to clear that apartment when we go that way. Yes.
So and to that end, one of the things that Stephen identified from the event last year is we're putting Knox boxes for the fire department. So when the fire department gets here, they will be able to retrieve their own copy of master keys for the whole building. So they'll have a key. Some staff members will have keys. But yes, it will make things go much faster for us checking the building if you leave your apartments unlocked. Yes, sir.
As we go through the process, as paperwork that you've given us, information you've given us, if we come up with questions, can we submit those and then you feed those back to us after if they're of a general nature, you can distribute them to the community. Specific questions, I thought of one that probably is just a marginal thing, but can you hear me all right now? I'm
Yes.
being directed. So can we submit those to you? Because
Sure.
I'm sure there'll be questions that we have as we go through the process in our minds.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Please, any questions that you
Who,
have,
to who should we submit them?
you can submit them to me. That'd be just fine, and I'll be happy if it's something that Aaron needs
Thank
to
you.
answer. I can get them to Aaron, and if it needs to go back out to everyone, I'll certainly put it out on the link if I need to make sure everyone gets that information.
So I keep looking this direction. Was there anybody over here?
We've got one here.
Okay.
We've got a couple over here too when we get back around.
One thing you have not told us, shouldn't we always put on hard-soled shoes, not bedroom slippers?
Don't tell me to take.
I mean, I learned this in evacuating in South Alabama for hurricanes.
Yeah.
Put on hard-soled shoes.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, I like
But
it.
I'm not taking the curlers out of my hair.
This is a very good document. A lot of work went into that. It's missing one, maybe two very important things, I think, for us. It does not tell our most vulnerable residents, those who need assistance with stairways and walking, what to do. Could you consider adding that to this document, telling us what we are to do if we are on rollators or mobile
I got this
assist
one, Aaron.
devices?
Yes, sir. So in about 2 weeks, there's a couple of other issues that I've identified. I brought it up earlier in the Maintenance and Safety Committee meeting. About maybe 2 years ago, we stopped giving out hard copies of the resident handbook, so you can't get a published or printed copy of that anymore. Now you have the resident services handbook, I guess, or guide that's published on K4. But when you look in the emergency section that covers this evacuation plan, it's about a paragraph and a half long, and it doesn't cover any of this information. So I spoke with Scott about it, and what I'm going to be doing is updating the evacuation plan that's going to include that information packet that you have, along with the information that you just asked for, and a lot of other stuff, including bad weather, like tornado drill type information. It's going to have a lot more information than we covered here, but it wasn't appropriate for this venue. But yeah, there will be a document that's going to be published on K4 that you'll have access to. I'll also put it on the link periodically that you'll be able to download and print off yourself. So we'll have access to that very shortly.
One more suggestion. When people accumulate at the stairwells who are not able to get down the stairs, would you add to your instructions advice to buy a pair of earplugs for the lengthy time you are likely to be required to stay at that doorway entrance to the stairwell? If anybody has ever tried to do that, you know it is actually painful.
Might be worth the purchase, yes.
It is certainly. I will put that in the line of the shoes. That's more of a personal preference for comfort, but certainly advisable.
Mr. Dorman, do you have something?
Earlier, you mentioned that there's a mobility impairment list, but you were talking in terms of people with scooters. Are people that can walk down the hallway but no way go down the stairs, are they on the impairment list?
If you feel like you cannot go down the stairs under your own power, you need to add yourself to the list, please.
Yeah,
Are you going to make
Are
are you going to make sure that people understand that?
I thought he said that. But yes, sir. If you feel like you're not able to walk down the stairs by yourself under your own power, we need to make sure that you're on that list so that we can identify that you need help. Yes, sir.
That would be a good thing to put in the thing you're going to do at K4.
It is, yes, sir.
I will also let you know that if you forget to identify yourself and you need help down the stairs, that doesn't mean we're not going to save you because you weren't on the list.
You're not on the list,
All right?
Mr. Dorman. I'm sorry, I can't help you, buddy.
That just basically gives us an idea of numbers and locations. To what he was talking about, do we need 2 stair lifts for this stairwell, or will 1 do, based on the number of people that identify themselves? That's all that list is for. It's not going to stop us from saving you when that event transpires.
Yeah, I know that. But I just would want to make sure that everybody that cannot handle stairs realizes that they can go on that list.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Our floor leader is not here. If our floor 2 has 4 sections, if we had 1 person in each section to check the rooms, is that a good idea or not?
No, ma'am. So she's asking, would it be good to identify somebody to check the rooms in your immediate area before exiting? We're going to say no, that let staff do that. We can navigate, I can navigate those hallways at a run if I have to. So let us worry about that. You guys' primary concern is to get yourself in a safe location. You said you had 2.
That's all right.
We had 1 over here, I think.
We got a couple over here.
You're getting your steps today, Donna.
Good. I need more dinner.
Following up on her question, to me, that question was not about checking the apartments, but when you get out there, somebody checked that you're there.
Now,
You said that would be a floor, but you have to have a floor rep in almost a floor person taking that inventory at all of the 3 because we're going out at different doors.
that I would endorse, but that's more with you guys kind of self-organizing. It's certainly easier to account for 5 or 6 apartments than it is for, let's say, 20. So if you wanted to kind of create little teams,
Pods.
that would definitely be useful. But that's more with what you guys want to do.
Some of us are less than excited about all the new technology. And my doctor's office is one of those that keeps trying to guess at what's the most fun to screw up the patients. But now, just a question. Does everybody here use K4? I don't even know what it is officially.
Not yet, but we're definitely, we are certainly trying to move you in that direction, yes.
Yeah, I guess we're getting drug in that direction, but anyway.
Kicking and screaming, huh? If you need a printed copy of this evacuation plan, by the way, you will have the option of downloading it off of the link where you can print it, and you can always get in touch with me. I will be more than happy to make sure that you have the ability to get a copy. If you want me to print you a copy, let me know. If I need to leave a few in the communications room, I can do that also. We'll make it available. We can leave it in the mail rooms, maybe in East and West, or we'll make sure it's available. Yes, sir.
Well, Ken mentioned the earplugs, so a question I had later, I'll ask now, because it will affect potentially a number of people. Those with hearing impairment, obviously when I go to sleep, I take my hearing aid out and I don't hear anything.
Sure.
So we had requested strobe light 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Never gotten it.
Okay.
And for folks that do have a hearing impairment, probably need to take a survey of people who need it and make it available, actually make it available, and deal with that issue, because that's going to be a problem for a lot of people, of course, finding their hearing aids when they get out of bed and all that.
Certainly, yeah. Strobes are definitely available for anyone that's hearing impaired. So if you are in an apartment and are hearing impaired or have become hearing impaired since you have moved in, please let me know. Shoot me an email. That is something that's readily available. We can have our fire company come by and have that installed. That's definitely a question that we ask when you move in for resale, because we can have that added before you move in or as you're moving in. But yeah, strobes are definitely available. Yes, ma'am.
How are you going to encourage people to actually leave their apartments? The last fire alarm, I walked the whole 3rd floor, not one door opened.
I can't. All I can do is in this type of forum is ask you to participate. I can't force you. You can't force your hand. I can't even during an actual fire event force you to leave your apartment. The fire department's not going to force you to leave your apartment. Nobody's going to force you to participate. I will say that if a fireman knocks on your door and you say, I'm not leaving, we're just going to move on to the next door and try to help the person that wants help. Help people that want to help themselves. But what I will say is in the next month, I will have a fire drill, and I will not tell you when it's coming like you have had notice in the past years. So hopefully you'll participate. This first one will be a daytime. It will be hopefully warmer weather. I'm going to try and find a nice day somewhere. I don't want it to be 20 degrees outside when this next one comes. I'm going to try to get the help of the fire department like we have had in the past, so it's more of a real feel event, so that we have, the fire department shows up, it's more of a real type affair. We get the building cleared like we're supposed to, and we get an idea of how long it actually takes. I want to kind of go through that experience. I'll probably do west one day, and then I may schedule east or for another day a couple of weeks later or something along those lines, and give this thing a test run and see how we do. But I will not be warning you guys when it's coming, so I'm sorry about that. But
Aaron.
Yes, ma'am.
Aaron, you mentioned you would have a rover security in here, but we don't always have a rover security on weekends and on the day shift. There's only a gate guard. So who's going to respond to the gate guard in that instance?
So there's always one scheduled, but you're correct. It doesn't always happen with vacation and illness and that sort of thing. We try to get secondary guards in here. In that case, we're going to rely on some of the OBT support staff, the nurse that responds to pendants. And it's situational dependent, but the gate guard is allowed to leave the gate in an emergency like that and then would become the rover.
Second question, there are some of us here who have enclosed screen porches, so we can't go out there and yell for anybody.
Well, it's just saying your porch is going to be farthest from the danger, if there's fire right outside your door, and get to your porch where there's even if it's screened, it's accessible to fresh air. But it's screened and closed.
No, they may have Lex on.
Okay.
Some of them have plexiglass. But you would still be the furthest away from the hallway.
You'd still be the furthest away from the hallway.
And then access to your cell phone to call security.
Yeah, your cell phone, your pendant, any type of way to make it. And if during an event like this, what we experienced last year, you also may have noticed that security gate got about 150 calls in 5 minutes. So call, if you can't get through to security, call your neighbor or call your friend to let them know as well, and they can get word to security. But the security is going to be answering the phone as much as they can, but they might be on the phone with 911 as well. So that gate phone is going to get some traffic in an event like that.
During a discussion like this a couple of years ago, it was stated that if you are in independent living, you are responsible for getting out. And I think that kind of hit me, but independent is independent. So I think if we concentrate on plans for helping the people who can't get down the stairs, but the rest of us need to know that we need to be mature about it and get out. And not wonder if it's for real.
So, and that's very true. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not going to do everything we absolutely can to get anybody out that needs help. I do want to circle back to, you reminded me we had a discussion in an event like that, where it's a real event, unless you actively need assistance or you actively have eyes on where the fire is, don't call the gate. Only call the gate if you have useful information that they need, okay? Otherwise, try to leave that line open for people that are trying to communicate, hey, I saw fire in my apartment, or I saw fire on the second floor hallway. So try to leave that line open for people that had actual eyes-on information. In the back.
While she's walking, I would also say that there are no false alarms. If you hear the general alarm going off, you should act like it's an alarm and participate in the evacuation plan.
For those who don't know, have not been in the stairwells, there are handrails on each side which are quite easy. You can hold on to both of them easily. So I encourage everybody to at least take a look.
That's a great point. Thank you. Yeah. If you haven't seen the stairwells, it doesn't hurt to go open the doors and walk in them, and maybe go up and down a flight and see how you handle it. Anybody else? If that's it, thank you very much, everyone, for coming by. If you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.